Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I'm your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in Texas, Virginia, and before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I hope you're having a great day. For today's case, we turn our attention to Nick Rekieta, the law pope, has been arrested, as I'm sure you all know at this point, for drug possession. And we have a copy of the complaint against him, which we're going to analyze and discuss some of the things that we know at this point and discuss some of the things we don't know at this point because we still don't have some information. But we'll discuss what we know and we'll try to keep it as factually based as we can because that's how we roll. Okay. So this is a copy of the complaint that has been released, which gives us some information that states among the other things. Now, right away, we have a problem sort of at the top, which is the drug possession in the second degree. Now, initially, when I first commented on this, it was fifth degree, and now it's second degree. And that's a difference of 3 degrees, which is significant for any number of reasons, not the least of which is the possibilities of some sort of plea deal obviously become more challenging as you reach further and further degrees because you have to get further and further towards a better resolution because of the gap, right? Because it's like, well, this is where we're starting, as opposed to this is where we're starting, right? So if I want to be here and I'm starting here, that's not so bad. But if I want to be here and I'm starting here, that's more of a problem for the obvious reason, right? So his opportunities for some sort of, different resolution are compromised by the fact that it's now a second degree charge. So that is a change that has changed in the legal analysis and somewhat significantly. The theoretical maximum sentence is 25 years, but he's not going to get that. And to prove that point, let us turn our attention to... Hold on. Yes, I need to put up this window. Let's turn our attention to the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines, which tells us all the wonderful things that we need to know. So this is the official guidelines from the state of Minnesota as it relates to sentencing. I'm assuming that he has no criminal history score, so we'll give him a criminal history score of 0. This is controlled substance of the second degree for the moment, which results in a proposed sentence of 48 months. But you'll see that there's a nice little gray box at the 48. And if you go down and read what the gray tells you, it says it's a presumed stayed sentence. At the discretion of the court, however, up to 364 days of confinement and other jail sanctions can be imposed. So that means that he is facing a very strong possibility of there being no jail time in prison or even jail. I mean, obviously there is a lot to be discovered, but 48 months, but all suspended is the good news. So that's promising. He has a misdemeanor reckless driving. I'm not really sure that qualifies depending on the relevant time period. But sure. But even if the misdemeanor reckless driving counted, which I'm not sure it necessarily does for the purposes of this exercise, but even if it did, you'd still be 58 months with a criminal history score of 1, and you'd still be on a suspended sentence. So the point remains. So yeah. But also, by the way, for the purposes of this, you have to know when the conviction occurred relative to this, and yeah, so it's not that simple. But we're going to go with 0 for the moment, and we'll work from there. But even if he had a criminal history score of 2, it wouldn't be, yeah. So as long as it's a criminal history score of 1 or less, it should be fine. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Anyways, that's what we're looking at. So it looks like 4 years, but all suspended is the plausible outcome. The arraignment judge said the max is a lot more years. Correct. The theoretical maximum is 25 years. As it says right here, the theoretical maximum is 25 years. But these are the sentencing guidelines. These are the sentencing guidelines, and it tells you what you get for different... That's the whole point of the sentencing guidelines, because not all offenses are created equal. So yes, hypothetical max of 25 years. But realistically, 48 months all suspended, because that's what the chart says. That's what the point of the chart is. Anyways. All right. So anyways, the theoretical max is 25 years. Realistically, Probably no prison, but we'll see. It is, of course, a felony, and it is described that on or about May the 23rd in the county of Candoya, Minnesota, the defendant possessed one or more mixtures of a total weight of 25 grams. In case you're curious, because I looked it up, Minnesota law basically says as long as there's any amount of the drug present. So the purity of it doesn't matter. So if there's any amount of cocaine, then you count the total amalgamated weight of the entire thing. So if it's 25 grams of 100% pure cocaine or 25 grams of 10% pure cocaine, apparently Minnesota law treats those as exactly the same, which is not to be unexpected. But that's, that's pretty typical. But that's, what it says. Okay. So he possessed, allegedly, of course, over 25 grams of cocaine. We're going to learn it's a little bit more like 26, but that number is also open to possible rebuttal. All right, and then we have possession of a firearm. This is just mere possession. While a user of any controlled substance, he possessed ammo. Now, it's notable here because some people were saying in earlier discussions that the firearm inherently meant the amounts changed. Like some people were saying, oh, it's 50 grams, except if you have a firearm, it's 25 grams. But that's not correct because I looked it up. The change only applies if the firearm is used in the commission of the offense rather than the mere possession of the offense. So for example, if a firearm was brandished or used or threatened or otherwise like used in the commission of the offense. So, he was trying to possess and also had a firearm and was brandishing people and things like that. That would be the firearms enhancement. But this is not a firearms enhancement thing. So as far as I can tell, under relevant Minnesota law, the possession of the firearm in this particular circumstance does not qualify as a firearm enhancement that would change the amounts of the drugs. So that thing does not seem to apply in this circumstance. So just for your edification. Okay, and then count 3, that kids were there. Kids were in the place in which the drugs were. So that, again, is not like a child abuse charge. It's not a child neglect charge. It's not a child endangerment charge. I mean, really, strictly speaking. I mean, it says endangerment, but strictly speaking, the children were there. So, I mean, that's all that is. So that is what it is and go from there. All right. So now we'll learn a little bit more about the facts of how this case came to be, according to the government. Now, what I do not have is a copy of the search warrant affidavit, and I'm unlikely to get it, although I'll ask. But, so we don't know for sure, but the description has been that a mandatory reporter was in their home, possibly their pastor was in their home and apparently made a report to the police, then apparently had enough evidence for probable cause, which I'm not sure exactly how that works, incidentally. So challenging the search warrant is obviously a possibility and would be obviously his best bet if he can challenge the validity of the search warrant. But if he can't challenge the validity of the search warrant, he has more problems. So, because a lot of the other defenses that we sort of illuminated earlier don't really work. Unless it's just like not cocaine, which I suppose that's possible too, because it's only been validated so far by a field sobriety or by a field test. And those field tests kind of suck. They're just pretty garbage. So if it turns out that, it isn't actually cocaine, but baking powder because the field test is shit, I wouldn't be completely surprised. But then again, I don't have my strong hopes up, but I'll take a note that those field kit tests kind of suck. So I'll just take a note for whatever value it has. Anyways, so at 9:13 in the morning on May the 23rd at his house, we found Nick traveling southbound on his streets. So he was traveling to his house at the time the police were executing the search. Nick was stopped by law enforcement. Upon knocking on the door, a juvenile female opened the door and wouldn't let them in. Smart kid. Good kid. Don't let the police in the door. Good work. Nick, for his part, would not provide the door code to enter the residence, and law enforcement entered the home utilizing a door ram. I take no particular position on this except to note that by not giving them the door code and not allowing them in, it does remove any possible argument by the government that they were given permission. because, you know, if you can argue consent, consent always wins, right? Because if you have a problem with the warrant, let's just, you know, take the best possible case. We have a problem with the warrant because we have a problem with the affidavit, or it wasn't enough for probable cause, or whatever. So we'll go there. But if we have a problem with the warrant, if we can get consent, our problems disappear. So the police always like consent because it makes all their problems go away. So by not giving the code and not allowing them entry of permission, I think arguably he made the right decision. He lost a door, but he preserved a Fourth Amendment argument he would otherwise wouldn't have, at the cost of the door because he has to replace it himself. But probably a good decision, all things considered. So I think this was probably the right call because it preserves options, and options are good. So, you know, hey. Let's see. All right, so then the police used a battering ram to break down the door, which kind of eliminates the possibility of a consent argument. Upon entry, law enforcement located Kayla and April Imholt, who I understand is their nanny, and 4 juveniles who were also in the home. She has 5 kids, or they have 5 kids, but one of them apparently was not there at the time. The officers noted the home was extremely cluttered. There were clothes everywhere, dirty dishes, dust, and an overall dirty home, which kind of is neither here nor there because, well, people having an unkempt home is not illegal. So I again, this is sort of what makes me wonder if there's a possibility, at least hypothetically, that we might be able to challenge the warrant because we might be able to challenge the affidavit because maybe there's not evidence of abuse or neglect that would rise to probable cause. So there's some possibility maybe of challenging the warrant. So whatever. Let's see. All right, where were we? Nick returned to home with law enforcement. He demanded a copy of the search warrant. When given a copy, he looked at it and threw it on the ground. Again, unneeded detail, but whatever. During the search, law enforcement apparently located the following in the master bedroom. The following items were located in the master bedroom near a nightstand. A yellow snort tube, which is positive for cocaine. A black vial with white substance inside that field tested positive for cocaine and weighs 2.2 grams. Unclear what weighs 2.2 grams. The entire vial or just the cocaine? So unclear. 2 credit cards listed to April Imholte and a .22 spent caliber shell casing on the floor. Okay. The following item was located underneath the bed. A Sig Sauer with several magazines and loose ammo. The following item was located in the master bedroom dresser. Glass container with a metal filter and grinder, and a glass container that field tested positive for cocaine. The following items were located in a safe in the master bathroom. Unclear how they gained access to the safe, incidentally. But that detail could theoretically matter, of course, for the reasons I illuminated earlier with respect to the home. A bag with cards and dollar bill that field tested positive for cocaine. Well, show me a dollar bill that doesn't. Large corner cut baggie with a white powder that field tested positive for cocaine and weighed 18.96 grams with packaging. So again, there might be an ability to challenge the weight limits, which if you can, and you can get it knocked down a step because you're really near the threshold, that would be good. Although we have possibilities on the other end of this thing too that we'll talk about. But, you know, there's a possibility that we can get another 25 grams, which would be great because then we're not in second degree. Now we're in third degree. But then we have other problems as we're going to discuss along the way. Like right now, for example, 3 small baggies that field tested positive for cocaine and weighed 5.49 grams with packaging. And then where we've run into problem, 8 green colored tablets that field test positive for ketamine. Yeah, so that's a problem because we're looking at an additional possession charge. Now, I did my absolute best to look this up under Minnesota law because some states, they aggregate different drugs, or aggregate rather, not aggravate, aggregate different drugs. And they convert it for the purposes of like drug possession into one drug. I think that, you know, something like marijuana, for example, all drugs are marijuana kind of idea, right? We're going to take different drugs and we're going to convert them using some formula into their equivalent weight of marijuana, and then we'll just treat it all like one thing. So some states do it that way, but this state doesn't seem to do it that way. They don't seem to aggregate different drugs like that, which means that, well, on the plus side, it doesn't look like we're going to risk the possibility of this going from 25 grams to 50 grams, because we had 50 grams of cocaine once we convert the ketamine into cocaine equivalent. So it doesn't look like we're going to do that. But on the negative side, the ketamine itself is illegal. So we're looking at a different possession charge. So at the moment, we have one drug possession charge, but it looks like we're heading rapidly in the direction of new, additional drug possession charges. Probably not a second degree, but it doesn't help. So, you know what? That's what we got there. So that's good stuff, or not. A digital scale that tested positive for cocaine, which isn't really great because, you know, yeah. Metal pan with white powder tested positive for cocaine. Also, while I'm here, I guess I should mention that another way to change the limits from degrees of possession, another way to change those limits is if you can show like intent to distribute, which a metal scale would be an indicia, but it is not probably enough by itself. So I looked up the relevant aggravating factors under Minnesota law, by the way, because I tried to do my due diligence before starting this stream. So I tried to look up, okay, what are the aggravating factors that would change this from one degree to another? Okay, was it a gang thing? No. Okay, was a weapon used in some sense during the commission of the crime? No. Okay, was it done in 3 or more counties? That's actually a thing. No. Okay, was it done, you know, with intent to distribute? No, there doesn't seem to be enough indicia of that. So yeah, there doesn't seem to be enough at this point to be able to make a trafficking charge, as best as I can determine. So that's nice. But it doesn't help. A metal pan, which is presumably for the scale, with white powder that tested positive for cocaine, and 2 snort tubes and 2 metal cutters that tested positive for cocaine. And then we found a safe in the master bedroom, or in the master bedroom closet. Also unclear how we gained access to this safe for the same things. $100 bill with white powder residue that field tested positive for cocaine. Bindle with bag that tested positive for cocaine. A cocaine scooper, I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound great. 2 baggies within a baggie with a funnel, and some unknown brown substance which will be tested at some later point, which again could lead to additional possession charges, particularly if that brown substance is mixed with cocaine, because as I mentioned, it doesn't really matter what level of purity you have under the relevant laws. So that could be cocaine. So we have, I don't, in other words, I'm not sure that this charge set is necessarily the end of the charge set. These charges are subject to change for reasons I'm trying to illuminate. Right? I'm trying to show you things that could aggravate things. I'm trying to show you things that could de-aggravate things. I'm trying to show you like everything that there is so you can understand some of the potential complications that are coming along the way, potentially. Okay? Now, additional firearms and ammunition were located in the garage. The total amount of measurable cocaine is 26.67 grams with packaging. Again, the with packaging leads to some plausibility that this could be reduced down a degree, which would obviously be beneficial, because then we wouldn't be in controlled substance of a 3rd degree, a 2nd degree. We'd be in controlled substances of a 3rd degree, which if we can look at our handy chart from earlier, instead of a 48-month suspended sentence, only a 21-month suspended sentence. So, hey, it's half the time, more than that. So, you know, that's good if we can get that knocked down because the packaging doesn't count. So we'll see. Also, the state of Minnesota, as best as I can determine, it has made a mistake in their document. Not that it will, you know, change things. They'll have to amend it, but just a note. They say cocaine is Schedule 2, which is true. And then they say ketamine is Schedule 1, which is not true. And to prove that, here is a copy of the relevant Minnesota statutes. In subdivision 4 for Schedule 3, consisting of substances in the following subdivision. I will direct your attention to subpart 5, subpart 2. Ketamine. Ketamine is Schedule 3, not Schedule 1. The state of Minnesota made a typo. I'm just saying. I looked it up. Okay. Detective Pomlin met with Nick outside his residence, apparently read Miranda, and he agreed to speak with officers without counsel. Dude. Why? Did we not do the mantra? Did we not? This channel's been trying to teach you the mantra, guys. I've been trying to teach you the mantra for a long time. I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer. Just say that. Only that. Don't alter it. Don't mess with it. Don't complicate it. Don't add other exciting words. Don't reduce any exciting words. Just that. Just do the mantra. I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer. There's no reason to talk to the police at this time. If something has to be said, it can be said at a later time. So, yeah, I mean, don't talk to the police, like, ever. Just don't. Just say no. Just say no, like you might say, for example, to drugs. Just say no, and then, okay, never mind. But apparently, Nick over here decided to talk to the police, which, yeah. For example, he indicates he sleeps in the master bedroom, which, would seem to be obvious, but then, of course, he just confessed to that, right? Because it makes the argument harder, but, no, we don't sleep in the master bedroom. We just use it for... It's a bedroom. It's a room for the bed. That's all it's for. We sleep on the couch. I don't know. And I don't know how the drugs got there, right? So, these arguments might seem a little bit silly, and in some sense they are. But by saying, oh yes, I sleep in that room where the drugs are found, obviously that is a closer tie to the drugs than if you hadn't said that, right? If the police had to prove that you slept in the master bedroom, then, but they don't, because you just confessed to it. So you gave them a thing. Don't give the police a thing. That is my lesson here. Okay. He indicated that April Imholt was at the home visiting. Nicholas and Kayla were placed under arrest. While placing under arrest, Detective Pomlin noted several injuries to the arm of Nick that appeared consistent with sores that are common with controlled substance users. I don't, whatever. They were transported to the county jail, in which the wife over here did not speak with the officers. Kayla, you got the mantra. Kayla got the mantra. Kayla kept her mouth shut. Good for you, Kayla. Good for you. So Kayla got the mantra. I want a lawyer. I want to remain silent, and kept her mouth shut. Good for you, Kayla. Good for you. At the jail, Nick was again read his Miranda rights, where he was once again reminded about his right to remain silent and decided he wasn't into that because he'd like to speak with the officers without an attorney. Don't do this. Just say no. Don't ever do this. No good can come from this. There is no scenario in which this is going to work out for you. Don't do it. Just say no. I want a lawyer. I want to remain silent. I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. Don't say other things. But Nick over here decided to say other things. Nick refused to answer any questions regarding cocaine or other controlled substances, which incidentally, in this context, his silence can probably be used against him because it's in the context of an overall interview. And so his lack of reaction might be a thing. So, yeah, we'll see. Nick indicates he lived at the residence. He stays in the master bedroom with his wife. Again, I don't live there. I don't know whose house that is. My name might be on the deed, but you prove I live there. But he proves it, right, by confessing to it. So again, he gave them a thing. Would it be an easy thing for the government to prove? Sure. There's 3,000 videos of him streaming in his basement. So it's not exactly hard, but he doesn't have to confess. Never make the government's life easier. Don't make it easier. Make them work for it. However little much that is, whatever little minimal amount of work that is, make them work for it. Don't make their life any easier. He also said that April was a friend who was visiting and did not live at the residence, who I understand April has been let off, and the charges apparently for the moment have been dismissed, which makes logical sense, given what we know. I mean, she's not a regular, prove that she lives there. Also, the drugs were found in the master bedroom, safe, in the master, bedroom closet safe. So there's no particular evidence that links April to this, right? So yeah, the charges have so far been dismissed. But of course, April is presumably a potential witness to potential drug use or possession by Nick and or his wife. Potentially, possibly, although I wouldn't know that for sure, to be fair, because I have also personally been in his house. It was quite a few years ago at this point, but I was in his house. I stayed for a weekend. He was very cordial to me, and I did not see any drugs or drug paraphernalia. So maybe she didn't see any drugs or drug paraphernalia. Maybe like me, she had no firsthand knowledge to offer. But, it's a concern. So there's that. While being booked at the jail, and this is a nice touch, Kayla requested that her prescription medication being brought to her. Upon review of the prescription bottles that were brought into the jail at her request, which could potentially be a problem in and of itself, because you can't bring contraband into a jail. That's an offense unto itself. And because it was done at her request, that could be a new potential charge, bringing contraband into the jail. And then, of course, the contraband itself is a charge. We found 2 unknown pills and a gummy in one of the bottles that don't match the prescription on the bottle, which again could be potentially a problem as it relates to potential new charges, as it might relate to further controlled substances / attempting to bring contraband into a prison, jail, whatever. And that, if they don't appear, additional charges could be made, and, that's the end of that. All right, so that is what is going on for the moment, as best as I can determine. So, recap. Good news. Good news is, based on, I'm going to assume, a criminal history score of 0, or even 1, he is not facing any mandatory time. There's no mandatory time. He's not a prior offender of drugs. This wasn't related to gang activity. There's no mandatory minimum. The sentencing guidelines recommend a probated sentence, and that is what he would get. There is the possibility of up to a year in jail, but if he gets any time, I would assume it would be relatively minimal comparatively to the 25 years that he'd been threatened. And then, of course, the misdemeanors, but they're just tack-on charges. So those tack-on charges might lead to some time in jail, but it's not going to be like, years or anything. So it is what it is. So good news is he's not looking at the possibility of any serious confinement. Although, of course, there is the financial penalty, up to a $500,000 fine, which would definitely get my attention. And then also, of course, so that's the good news. That's the good news portion of the description. The bad news description of the portion of the description is, well, we haven't tested it. And also the good news portion of the description is that the substances that were weighed with their respective packaging. And we might be able to trim along the margins. And we only have to get rid of 1.5 grams, and then we can make it drop a degree. And if we make it drop a degree, then instead of 48 months, how about 21? And also, it opens the possibility of a plea deal, because again, if we're trying to get to here, and we're here, that's a problem. But if we drop a degree and now we're here, our possibility of trying to get to basically a go away, dismissal or equivalent becomes more practical. So if we can force this to a lower degree, our plea options become much more interesting and possible. So, hey, I would fight around for that ounce or gram and a half. A gram and a half is not very much. I mean, a gram is a paperclip. So, you don't have to get rid of a lot of weight here to make this potentially drop. So there's some possibility that this will, by operation of law, drop to third degree. And that would be nice. So that's the good news. Good news is we're only looking at 48 months, all suspended, pretty much. And we might get this dropped to third degree on operation of law. Bad news is we have potential other charges that are coming our way. Potential possession of other substances and other drugs. So probably not second degree, but, some lesser. So we're looking at, other possession charges of other degrees. And also against the wife in particular, because it was in her prescription bottle. And also she's the one that asked for the thing to be brought into jail, which obviously would implicate her, but not Nick, in a potential trying to smuggle contraband into a jail, charge. So I don't necessarily know that this is the end of the road with the charges, but hey, it could be worse. So we'll see how it goes. So I am okay. And then also, like, on a personal level, I'm not 100% sure how to feel about this on a personal level. And I'm not sure that, like, necessarily, I'm not sure what the right reaction is to this, but I don't know. All I can really say is that Nick has been kind to me in the past. And as I mentioned, I've been to his house and he showed me, courtesy, and he's been friendly to me. And so I don't, my immediate concern is for Nick, who has been kind to me. And that's, my immediate concern is that he obviously, if he has a drug problem, which seems like there's some evidence to suggest he might, I will note that even if we can dick around on the margins a little bit, 25 grams, give or take, is not exactly encouraging. So it's like, oh, instead of 26 grams, how about 24 grams? I mean, it's like, well, it's nice that we were able to get to 24 instead of 26 so we could drop a level. But 24 isn't exactly a rousing endorsement for not having a drug problem. So, yeah. So there's that. So my immediate concern is well, first of all, that he gets the best legal outcome possible, because he deserves that, as does anyone. Get a lawyer. I understand he has hired a lawyer, by the way. I heard it from Attorney Tom, who apparently heard it from Nick himself, that he has hired a lawyer, which makes sense, obviously. I assumed the I'm representing my wife was solely for the purposes of the initial, reading of the thing. I didn't assume that he was going to have any intent on representing her or April on an ongoing basis. And as the prosecutor pointed out, there's probably an unwaivable conflict of interest anyway. So I understand that they've retained a lawyer, which, God bless. So that's good news. But, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this on a personal level, because I have certainly seen clips of his work. Although, to be honest, I hadn't seen the most recent clips until sometime between the time in which I first learned of his arrest and now. So I hadn't seen, like, the clips that have been circulating from, like, the last week or something, where, where things look like really questionable. So I hadn't seen some of that stuff before I commented the last time. So my knowledge of his states was, let's say, from give or take January until, let's say, the beginning of May. During that period, I saw various clips that concerned me, but I didn't know how concerned to be, because I didn't know, like, how real it is, or how much of it's an act and how much of it is, like, performative and how much of it's real. And so, that there's that. And also, I also feel like a little bit, I feel some gratitude personally. I don't know if gratitude is exactly the right word. I feel lucky personally, because there was a time on stream where I was drinking fairly amount. And ironically enough, and I don't know if this is true for Nick or not, because it was true for me. I was drinking heavily, but only drinking heavily on stream, right? Because there were a couple times where people like gave shot challenges, like do $100 a shot, and sometimes people were generous, and I was doing drinking. And so there was a period like, let's say, because I've been doing full-time YouTube since July 2 years ago. So there was a period, let's say, from about January 2 years ago, maybe a little bit later, to maybe, what, a year ago or a year and a half ago, something like in that time interval, when I was drinking on stream and drinking to excess sometimes, and people thought I had a problem, and, you know, I didn't think I had a problem. And on the last such occasion that I drank this heavily on stream, which I don't know when this would be, I'd have to go like double check when it was, but I think it was like a year ago, if not more at this point. But there was an occasion on which like someone gave me something like, I'm going to screw up the number, but like $1,500 or $2,000 at, you know, at $100 a shot. And then I attempted to basically drink all of it, like all at once, which turned out to be a bad plan. You know, you probably shouldn't try to drink 16 shots like immediately back to back to back to back to back to back to back. That turned out to be, you know, not the greatest plan. And I made somewhat of a, I think I, you know, I was not exactly coherent on stream. It was not a good look. And I had some friends the next day or shortly thereafter come to me and be like, dude, what's up, man? This is really not good. And then I was like, you know what? You're right. And then I just didn't do it anymore. So I have never, well, I won't say I haven't ever drunk on stream before, because I don't think that would be true. But I've never done like shots like that before. I might have had a beer on stream, but I've never like since then drank to anything like excess. So having gone through that myself to some degree, I feel a couple things. I feel a little bit like, but for the grace of God go I, a little bit, because, you know, I was able to escape a more dramatic fate. I never was an alcoholic because I was able to just stop. You know, I was using the alcohol essentially medicinally, at least initially, for depression, which isn't necessarily ideal because alcohol itself is a depressive. So you're using a depressive to treat depression, which isn't exactly ideal, but you know, what else can you do? But anyways, like initially just using it medicinally, and then when I realized it was destructive, I just stopped. And so I feel like, and I never have used illicit drugs. So I feel a little like, but for the grace of God go I. And I feel like I see a little bit of myself in Nick to some of that. So I feel like, I don't know. And also he's been good to me personally. So I just feel like I hope he gets the help he needs. And I hope he's able to recover as I've mostly recovered in relation to this stuff. So, yeah. So, you know, but my concerns is for, my concern is for my friend, and that the hopes that he will be well. And I don't know the degree to which I'll cover this in an ongoing basis. I might, but I don't know. We'll see. Oh, I sort of interrupted my own train of thought because I started talking about myself. Sorry. I related it too much to myself, and I kind of interrupted my own train of thought. Moving backwards in my earlier train of thought, what my original point was that I had seen his behavior deteriorate over, let's say, January of this year to, let's say, May of this year, or maybe a little bit before January. But over the last, let's say, 5 to 6 months, excluding, you know, the immediate past 2 weeks, because I wasn't aware of that. But over that time period, I had seen clips sent to me where his behavior on stream seemed to be more, what would be the best word for it? Concerning, I guess, is the best word for it, because that's how I felt. I felt concerned. And I didn't know how much of it was real, and I didn't know how much of it was performative. But it seems like there was a fair amount of it that was real. And I had called him about 3 months ago, give or take. First of all, Nick is just impossible to get on the phone. The man does not respond to text messages or phone calls. So getting the man on the phone was a pot. So I've been trying to reach him for a while because he doesn't return phone calls. And then when I did get him on the phone, I asked him about it. And, he told me that, he wasn't an alcoholic and that, he didn't have a problem and all the rest of it. And, so I tried to reach out to him. I tried to express concern. I've done that before via text message. I've done it maybe 2 or 3 other times within, like, say, the last 6 months or so. Tried to reach out to him and be like, I'm here, I'm an ear, if I can help. I remember another time I talked to him, I couldn't say when, maybe 6 months ago, who knows, where he seemed to be going through some problems. I can't remember what they were, but I said to him that, I'm not even sure he told me. I think he just vaguely alluded to them, that he was going through stuff. I think this was around the time that he was renegotiating his Rumble contract, maybe, if that helps with the time frame. But I told him that he could call me and I would be there for him, and he never took advantage on that. But I tried to reach out to him as best as a friend could, and I feel like maybe I didn't see as much as I should have seen, or maybe I was more in denial about what I was seeing than what I should have seen, because I was close to him, because I was his friend, and at least, he's never done anything wrong to me. So I have no reason not to say that he was a friend and is a friend to me, because he's never done anything wrong to me. So maybe I was just too close to it and I didn't see it or didn't want to see it. But, the clip that, the clips that have been circulating recently with him on stream were particularly disturbing. And I never saw anything like that before. So, yeah. But I wanted to try. Oh, and also, by the way, about his legal license, because people ask me about that. I would suspect, and I wouldn't know for sure, but I would suspect that he's looking at some sort of suspension, but not disbarment. This offense does not appear to fall into the category of moral turpitude, right? There are certain crimes like fraud, for example, would be a good example, where it's a moral turpitude because you're a liar and you're deceiving people and you're tricking people them, and it shows a moral failing. So there are crimes that fall into this category of moral turpitude, and I don't think that this qualifies because it's a drug possession problem. It's not any crime involving deceit, fraud, lies, that kind of thing. So first of all, that's good news. First of all, that's good news in and of itself, because if it's not crimes of moral turpitude, the bar tends to care less. Secondly, lawyers, at least, and I don't know the degree to which the statistic is correct, because I believe the statistic goes back to when I was in law school, but lawyers have something like 3 times the rate of addiction problems compared to the general population. So when it comes to lawyers and substance abuse, this isn't exactly the bar's first rodeo. So I would imagine, although I wouldn't know for sure, but I would imagine the bar is going to insist that he goes through some sort of relatively standardized sort of treatment regimen involving some sort of psychiatry or maybe drug counseling or whatever. And he's looking at a potential suspension of his license for some time until he can potentially satisfy whatever conditions of blah, blah, blah. So that's what my working presumption is going to be. Of course, this is a felony. That doesn't help. But that would be my working presumption. So we'll see. He didn't, to the best of my knowledge, he didn't steal money from the client, because that will get you disbarred in a hurry. If you want the quickest trip to disbarment, steal money from the client. That's the number one way to get there. He didn't literally fuck the client. Sleeping with the client will be is a problem. He didn't betray the client's secrets, right? So like the sort of top tier hit list of the bar is going to have, you're going to have a bad day with the bar. None of those things appear to be implicated, at least so far. So I'm reasonably, cautiously optimistic that he will keep his license, perhaps after some sort of suspension, which, if I had to imagine, will ultimately be something that he'll agree to as a negotiated settlement with the bar. If I had to guess, which I do because I don't know, but that's where we are. Yeah. Now, Robin makes a good point in chat, and I was sort of alluding to this earlier when I was saying I don't know what it says about me. And I'm not sure what it says necessarily about my character or anything else, but like, I'll be honest with you, because it's just how I feel. And what else can you do except say how you feel, even if it's the wrong feelings? Maybe my feelings are the wrong feelings. Maybe I shouldn't feel this way, but I'll tell you how I feel. Like Robin in chat says, I think what the saddest part is everyone's worried about Nick and no one's talking about the kids and maybe what they've been through. I don't feel bad for Nick. I feel sad for the kids. I understand how you feel. I get it. That makes sense to me. Perhaps because I would assume, without knowing, that you don't know any of these people personally, right? You don't have any sort of relationship with any of them personally. So you're viewing this from more of an objective standpoint, which perhaps is the better standpoint. Perhaps it's the more correct standpoint. Perhaps I'm too close to have the correct viewpoint on this issue. But for better or worse, and I'm not sure what it says about me, for better or worse, my thoughts primarily are with Nick. That isn't to say I don't care about his children. I obviously do. But my first thoughts are with Nick. So maybe that's because I have a relationship with that. Maybe it's because when I saw him with his kids, when I was at his house, you know, however long ago that was, everything I could see seemed like he was a good father. I had no reason to think that he wasn't a good father and that he wasn't taking care of them. So I don't know. So I'm not sure what it says about me or my thoughts or my feelings on this issue. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe I'm too close to him. But my feelings primarily are with Nick. I suppose it's because he's the one I have the allegiance to. So I you know, because I feel like, you know, we have a bond, a spirit de corps, you know, we've gone through the trenches together in some sense in the law tube genre. And I don't know, there's something in there somewhere. So whatever. I assume that he will get clean. I assume that he will not lose his parental rights in the long term. So we'll see. Rusty says, when you know someone who uses it, it's hard to watch the person you know change because of substance abuse. The person you know is not the person on drugs, which is also possible. Because to the extent that I know him on a personal level, from being with him at, say, for example, Anime Matsuri, or being with him in Tennessee, or being at him in Vegas, or being to his home, or being with him on various streams. You know, to the extent I've known him and spent time with him, it was all basically before this, let's say, critical interval of the last 6 months. So it is quite possible that the Nick I have in my mind is to some degree not the Nick that currently exists. I can't speak to that. I don't know. And as someone in chat sort of pointed out, I have basically zero experience dealing with junkies, like in any capacity whatsoever. I've never been a friend with a junkie. I've never had to deal with a junkie. The closest I've ever gotten to anything even close to this is people who drank too much and like threw up because they were drinking too much. And, you know, and then, you know, they got up the next day and they went about their life. So yes, I have zero experience with junkies. So that, for better or worse, informs and perhaps does not taint my views, which again, could be incomplete. So, yeah. Alcohols or junkies? Maybe. I mean, if you want to say an alcoholic is a junkie, then fine. But then again, at least as far as I'm concerned, I don't know that Nick was an alcoholic, and I've never to the best of my knowledge. I've never had someone who's confessed to being an alcoholic. I've never had someone go through like 12. I don't know anybody. So I have no experience. So I don't know. I don't know anything about the ticket case he took up or any romantic entanglement he might have had with another client. I don't know anything about that. Would Nick be able to represent himself if his bar license is suspended? Of course. You can always represent yourself. Although strictly, yeah, because it's a fundamental right. Of course, you don't have to be a lawyer to represent yourself. So sure, if his bar, yeah, he can always represent himself no matter what. Of course he can. Having dealt with addicts before, the way Nick is already trying to push away all blame, saying he's not going to stop anytime soon. Could be. Could be. I mean, in the end of the day, to some degree, he can only save himself. JM says, I appreciate your feelings towards Nick, and there's been conjecture he's in denial or hasn't hit bottom. You may need to steel yourself for a bit so you can be there when Nick is ready to benefit from it. I'm going to try. I'll try to hold on as long as I can. I'd hope he'd do the same for me. Also, incidentally, while I'm at this, as I'm sort of trying to decide for myself to what degree, if at all, I'm going to be covering this on an ongoing basis. I can't speak for anyone else and what they will or will not do, but obviously their ethics are not mine. And some people have argued, for example, that if, for example, any of us were arrested, that Nick would be like making fun of this on his stream or like grifting off of it or whatever. And I don't know, even assuming that that's true, I don't necessarily know what that has to do with me. Because if you believe that Nick is an alcoholic and or a drug addict, I'm not necessarily sure that what Nick would do should necessarily be the end all be all of what I would do or should do. So whether Nick would or would not like grift off this or, you know, make fun of it or whatever he would do, I'm not really sure necessarily speaks to what I should do or my own moral sense. So I'm still trying to figure out what the morally correct thing to do is here for me. Incidentally, by the way, that is not meant to condemn anyone else who takes a different position on this, except unless they are reveling in it, unless they are ecstatic or otherwise gleeful on his downfall. Those are bad people and they can go screw themselves. But anyone else who's covering this in any way they deem fit or not is fine by me. But I haven't figured out, you know, what the right ethical thing to do is for me here. So I'll work on that. Let me look at some of your super chats while you are here, and we can talk for a little while. Let's see. Let me look at the chats you've given so far and acknowledge them. Go frack from the top. Alan Parker gave 20 gift memberships, a longtime supporter of the channel. Thank you very much, Alan Parker. Not a banned account for $1.99 said addiction should be treated medically, not legally. A fair opinion. Not a banned account says $1.99 says America throws the book at nonviolent offenders. Sometimes. We'll see. Blitzen gifted 20 gift memberships. Not a banned account for $1.99 says, but it's legal to bring drugs to the White House. Funny. Admiral Nelson for $5 says, pray for the kids. I'll never forgive Nick for what he put the kids through. It's unclear to me necessarily what he put the kids through. I don't know. I don't know if what the kids have been through in terms of their experiences. I have no knowledge of that. My only exposure was from several years ago where he seemed to be a good father. And so I don't know the degree to which his problems have impacted his kids, but it's reasonable to assume it's something. So, yeah. Amanda Page has been a member for 11 months. Leon's Law says Nick will be all right. I don't see any jail time for this. Heck, my client got a summarily disorderly conduct for meth. That's a possibility too, right? I mean, there's possibilities of There's still possibilities that this could be deferred or otherwise diverted or otherwise treated in some other way. It's just, because we went from fifth degree to second degree, those possibilities become harder because we have to go further, right? It's like fifth degree, how about this goes away, is obviously inherently an easier sell than second degree, how about this goes away. So, it's possible, but there are problems. Potato for $5 said, so did they not test the drugs in their human systems, just the house? It was a field test for the immediate purposes of confiscating it. It's very typical. They will take it to a lab where they will be more accurately analyzed. So it's a presumptive test. It's enough for probable cause, right? Because that's all you need. We're arresting them from drug possession. How do we know if they have drugs? We did a field test. Is it enough for probable cause? Sure, why not? So that's, where we go. Could the gun under the bed be possession or within immediate reach for the purposes of lowering the limit from 25 to 10 grams? I'm going to go with no, because there's no indication that either Nick or anyone else was near the firearm at the time. So I'm going to go with no. Swamp Sagittarius City for $4.99 says, how does a child neglect report wind up with cops securing and executing a specific search warrant that includes opening a person's safe? I don't know. And that's also part of the thing I was alluding to earlier, trying to talk about earlier when it comes to challenging the warrant. Because I don't know. What did this person see? Especially as it relates to opening safes. Right? Because, it sounds like we have a warrant for drugs. Right? If the concern is child neglect, then we go into the house and we look, for child neglect. But if we're opening up safes, we're looking for contraband. So we have probable cause of contraband, which suggests the mandatory reporter somehow saw contraband. So, I don't know. But yeah, that's the thing. I don't know what's in the search warrant affidavit. That would be more interesting. Like, what did the witness report? What did they say? What is the basis for probable cause for the offenses? And why were they looking in the places that they were searching? Also, a copy of the search warrant would be helpful. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very good question. Challenging the search warrant is obviously, it seems at this stage, the best bet. Also, possibly knocking it down to grade are the two best bets I see. Joe Choi became an uncivilian by hitting the beautiful, beautiful join button. Thank you very much for everyone who hits the join button. It makes a huge difference. Did you know for a mere 99 cents a month, it's true, you can become an uncivilian, just like Joe Choi did. If you hit that join button, it is literally the least YouTube will let me charge you at 99 cents a month, and you get some cool things. For example, we're currently doing member-only recording streams for videos on demand because this channel is moving to a more video on demand format and not doing as many live streams. Incidentally, these videos on demand as it relates to Karen Reed have been very well received, for which I'm eminently grateful. Thank you for everyone who's enjoying those. So you can join us during the members only streams and watch the sausage be made. Or you can watch, for example, gaming streams when they happen. And you also get cool icon by your name, and you get some cool emojis, and that warm feeling that an uncivil gets to eat for another day. So that's all plus. Thank you for joining and becoming an uncivilian. AJ Red Sox has been a member for 11 months. Pam Ronning became an uncivilian. Also, incidentally, if Nick is a cocaine addict or a cocaine user, should I feel offended, like on a personal level, because he never offered me cocaine? I thought he was my friend. But never once did the man offer me cocaine or ketamine or any other drug. So assuming the premise that he's a cocaine user, should I feel offended? You guys can get back to me on that one. Pam Ranning became an uncivilian. Pam Ranning gifted 10 gift memberships. Potato gave $2 to say, also, in my opinion, best news, no one is hurt. Niners girl became an uncivilian. Matthew Felty says, do we know the mandatory reporters in the home? No, I don't think so. I don't think we know that. It could be that one of the kids told a mandatory reporter. That'd be funny and disturbing if true. Blonde in the belly of something, whose name I can't quite see, gave $4.99 to say, I hope that he is met with compassion, but uses this as an opportunity to redeem himself. All of us that have had alcohol addiction see ourselves in this. And thank you for your 10th super chat, ever. Leon's Law says, my understanding was Nick never drank before a show, that he did it as a prop for the show, and clearly something went awry. Yeah, maybe there's a cautionary tale in there somewhere. Matthew felt he gave $10 to see. It seems that LawTube has missed that he and Kayla had options for bail. Normally $50,000 unconditional or zero PR with conditions. Normally you wouldn't advise a client to be subject to conditions if you can pay. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, so it looks like, because I mean 50,000 unconditional. What's unconditional does suggest unconditional. So if he puts the money up, he's not subject to any conditions, which sounds pretty attractive. So I'd be strongly tempted to take that. So you can either do the PR bond, so you don't have to pay us anything with a whole bunch of conditions like probation and shit, or you give us money and you don't have to do that shit. I think I'd go with the money. I think Nick has it. I assume. Grassroots Hedgemon, $10 says, used to be kind of fun to have a drink and laugh along with Nick at stupid internet stuff. But when I saw he wasn't just doing it for a bit and it was really bad, I couldn't watch him. Or feels bad, man. Yeah, also, by the way, I was on a stream with him relatively recently. What was it, 2 weeks ago right now? Or something like that? And it was a really, really awkward stream. Because he invited me on, ostensibly, to talk about the Supreme Court. Because that's one of the things I do. I talk about the Supreme Court. And I don't know that we ever talked about it. Or if we did, it didn't happen for like at least an hour. Or more than that. And I was getting really tired by the end because he streamed so late. And I'm usually up around 7 in the morning. Because I'm usually at the gym at 8, like, you know, Monday through Friday. So I'm usually up around 7. And he streams at 11, which is pretty late for me. So I was up, and, you know, by like 12 and 1 in the morning, I'm fading pretty hard. And I tried to bring the topic to the Supreme Court, and he wouldn't transition the topic. And so we wound up like just dicking around about stuff. We got into an argument, discussion, something about whether or not police officers are particularly confused about what they ordered when they order food at an IHOP. And that was a discussion for a while. And then we got into a discussion about human trafficking for some reason. That was odd. So, yeah, not ideal. Denny's, not IHOP. You're right. Denny's. Sorry. Yeah. And it was such a weird, because I kept trying to move the topic and he wouldn't move it. And we went to try to talk, we couldn't talk about the thing I was there to talk about, which is the Supreme Court. And it's just like, dude, I want to talk about the Supreme Court. That's what I know. Yeah. So it was rambly and it didn't make me feel, I you know, I wasn't a super happy guest. You know, I didn't say anything about it at the time because, you know, but now in retrospect, yeah, maybe I should have taken more away from that than I did. I don't know. Pam Ronning gave $9.99 rather to say the train could have left the station and was on its way to the next stop with Nick when you talked to him. Fair. James Carson gifted 10 gift memberships. NQS has been a member for 33 months. Thank you very much. James Carson has been a member for 19 months. Matthew Felty gave $5 to say a kid could have contacted someone for help. We simply don't know if the reporter was in the home. True. Natalie Perenni says you're truly an amazing human. And then I'll read these again anyway. Jay gave $20 to say, I appreciate your feelings towards Nick, and there's been conjecture he's in denial or hasn't hit bottom. You may need to steel yourself for a bit so you can be there when Nick is ready to benefit from it. 10K View has been a member for 15 months. Matthew Felty says, I think Nick would ask about lemon pound cake. Nice. Mama Bear of One has been a member for 13 months. Pam Ronning, $9.99, said the right thing to do is be his friend. Just be there and keep posting when necessary. Iris has been a member for 3 months. Lawyer's Daughter became an uncivilian. $10 from Matt H says, a lot of people condemning his immediate post reactions. He's contesting the charges, is he not? He should. Even if it's just to encourage a deal, he can't start implicating himself on social media. Yeah, I have no particular problem with him keeping his mouth shut as it relates to his criminal case, which would be what I'd tell him to do as his lawyer if he asked. He obviously should not admit to anything. He obviously should keep his mouth shut, and he should probably not discuss it on stream. And for the love of God, probably don't drink on stream, regardless of bail conditions. Because, dude, come on. Probably don't do that. Blessed Mom FR Texas has become an uncivilian. Feral Dragon, hey, join the Uncivil Posse. Higher membership tier. Woohoo! We do love those higher membership tiers. Thank you for joining the Uncivil Posse for that higher membership tier. We do appreciate it. Moniker002 has been a member for 43 months. MNHS06 for $20 says, I heard he was fired from his teaching position. Okay. And the mandatory reporter was from the association and was concerned with drugs, alcohol, and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, so I don't know. Call me Rach became an uncivilian. Thank you. $5 from PA Grunt. As a recovering alcoholic, we never admit we're alcoholics until we reach that point. Took me 2 marriages. If I can recover, I hope Nick sees this. Well, as someone who'd like to believe that he perhaps recovered from perhaps the brink, I hope that he can recover too. Solving Johnson. No, that's wrong. I can do this. Solvig Johansson. Solvig Johansson, there we go, became an uncivilian. Katana became an uncivilian. Allison Corrigan became an uncivilian. Johnny F. Face for $4.99 said, so you got the North Korea tour of the home with everything clean, shiny, everyone waving and smiling? Well, I don't know I'd necessarily go that far, but, you know, he was a good father, and he treated me well. L. Jones says, I'm pretty sure ketamine can be used as a treatment for narcolepsy. Didn't he see a narcolepsy? I don't know. Perhaps they're prescription pills. I've never heard of that. I had infusions of IM ketamine for treatments for depression, but I don't know really much more beyond that. Thor Theo for £2 asked thoughts on the warrants acquired on the mandatory reporter. I really need to see the search warrant. I need to see the affidavit. I need to see the search warrant affidavit before I can answer that question. But there's possibilities of attacking it. Because the thing would be, what basis would the police, I'm assuming they're searching for drugs because they're looking in the safe, right? That would be the thing they'd be searching for, presumably. So what basis does the mandatory reporter have to believe, ideally, that drugs can be found inside the home would be ideal? So, yeah, but without the affidavit, I can't say that. So I don't know. Maybe I will get a copy. Do I think Nick is watching this? No. The pills were found in Kayla's medicine bottles. Some of them were. I don't think the ketamine pills were listed as being found in her bottle. There was unknown pills, along with a gummy that was found in her bottle. But according to the police, all they said is that the items were located inside a safe inside the master bathroom. And they just said 8 green tablets, but they don't mention them being found in any sort of prescription bottle. So that doesn't appear to be true, but they could be prescription and not kept in a prescription bottle, but, you know, I don't know. If there are multiple drug charges, does that change sentencing? No, probably not. They would probably be run concurrent. They would probably run concurrent and probably wouldn't. Well, although to be fair, each additional charge might be an aggravating factor. So it might lead to, and also, of course, those are just the presumptive sentences. So the judge can obviously order more or less within the statutory range. So, you know, yeah, I mean, the additional charges could lead to a, you know, more charge. Steve VC says, you know, a recovering addict off the coke 39.5 years. Well, good for you. Good for you. Did I watch KR yesterday? I didn't, but I need to watch it and cut it up because I heard there was really good fire. I do really appreciate everyone who supports this channel financially. It does make a huge difference. Thank you very much. So I try to give you guys good quality content, and I hope you like the content. I really do. What do I think about the time between the report and arrest? No particular thoughts. No particular thoughts. Perhaps the police were just doing some sort of investigation. I'm not sure what that would be, but perhaps there was some sort of investigation before they did the search. I don't know. Have I not read the probable cause? No. Is there an official probable cause affidavit? Because I'd be happy to cover it. How would I find a copy of it? If there's an official probable cause affidavit, that would be helpful. Debbie I says hi. I wondered why Nick stopped doing trial streams. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see it on the docket yesterday. Legal Mindset found it? Okay, well, if someone brings it to my attention, we'll cover it. So if one of you guys knows where it is and you can post it on my Discord or share it on Discord, that would be very helpful. Is Nick not allowed on YouTube? No, he can come on YouTube. Well, he can come on YouTube unless he's restricted by his agreement with Rumble or something, but I know of nothing that prevents him from being on YouTube. Legal Mindset has it. Well, I don't have it, so that doesn't do me any good right now. When they need probable cause for the arrest, they need probable cause to enter his home. They need probable cause for the search. Nick represented himself through the arraignment. Yeah, that's fine enough. I mean, that's easy enough as far as it goes. What's my Twitter ID? It's Uncivil Law. It's at Uncivil Law. Same ID it is everywhere. What agreement with Rumble? He signed a contract with Rumble. That's one of the reasons he streams over there. He signed a contract. I don't know what it is for or the amounts, but I know he signed an agreement to stream some of his content on Rumble for some exchange of money. You can search for it online. I could search for it online, but I'm in the middle of streaming. And in the past, when I've tried to do searches online while streaming, it leads to a lot of dead air, and it doesn't really work. So I can't practically do it because when I have tried to do it in the past, it leads to me fumbling around in a lot of dead air, and it doesn't work. So since I'm a little bit occupied at the moment, if one of you could help me out by searching for it and providing it to me, that would be really beneficial. Thank you. I hear his contract with Rumble finished in January. My understanding was that's true. But my understanding also was I thought he signed some kind of renewal. So I think you're correct, because that's around the time that I talked to him on the phone. But my understanding was that he had signed a renewal, although that might be incorrect. All right, so no, this is we read the probable cause statement. Yeah, we read the probable cause statement. The probable cause statement doesn't tell me enough. We read that. I thought you meant something else. Yeah, we read the probable cause statement. But that's probable cause. That's the probable cause for the drug possession. What I don't have is the probable cause for the search warrant. Those are two different things, right? Because I need to get in the house in the first place. And I need to be able to use a battering ram to get there. And I need probable cause for that. So I need probable cause to get into the house. I know they have probable cause for the drug possession. They found the drugs and did a field test, and it tested positive. That much is clear. But why were they able to look in the safe? Why were they able to enter their house? What's their probable cause for that? What's the probable cause for the search warrant? That's the thing I don't know. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. It's on page 4107 of the Kiwi Tharm about his arrest. That is less than helpful. Could you perhaps drop a link to me in my Discord or something so that I can go get it? That'd be helpful. We don't let links in chat, but oh, it's in YouTube mod chat maybe. No, I still have the probable cause affidavit. I still have that one. I've got the e-filed probable cause. Yeah, thanks, Alabama Rose. That's okay. So this is really bad. It's hard to read this, but I'll read it. It says, on 5/16/24 at approximately 8:39 hours, I, Sergeant David Nestor of the Candayowa County Sheriff's Office, was asked to stop into the office to take a mandatory reporting call from an individual who wished to remain anonymous, but was mandated to report. His name was Kevin Mellon, who was a pastor with the Evangelical Covenant Church in the city of New London. He's a pastor of the family of 5 children. The family he received report of information of neglect on is Nicholas Rekieta, his wife, and their children, which doesn't tell me why the police were able to look in his safes. So, so if it is suspicion of child neglect, then you can go into the house, but I'm not clear why you can go look in their safes. Yeah, I don't know about that one. That seems odd. The name, Conley's name is Candy Ohai. Candy Ohai? Okay, fine. Drugs on the counter in view might do the trick. That probably gives them probable cause to look other places for drugs. Yeah, so that's a good question. If they found drugs if they were there for child neglect and they looked, say, and found evidence of drugs in plain view, let's say, would that inherently give them probable cause to look for drugs in a safe? I don't know. I mean, would you be able to get a search warrant on that basis? Probably. So is it probable cause? Probably. So yeah, if the police were there for just, say, a child welfare check, if that's the reason they went there, and they saw in plain view evidence of drugs, that probably gets them to the end of the page. So yeah. If the safe was locked and it broke it open, would it matter more that the safe was ajar? Yes. If the safe was open and they could see into the safe and they could see drugs with their eyes, then yes, then it's plain view and you're fucked. So yes, if you leave your safe open with the drugs and the police come in and they look and they can see into the safe and they see the drugs, yeah, that makes a pretty big difference. Partial documents floating around Twitter says a pastor got an anonymous tip and called the cops. Don't know if it's authentic. Yeah. Also under Minnesota law, if the guns are just kept under the bed, isn't that a violation under Minnesota law now? Didn't they change the law for that, for like safe storage law? Hold on. Let's see. I'm now trying to Google safe storage laws in Minnesota. The Minnesota safe storage law goes into effect on August 1st. Whew, good for him. Good for him. All right. Okay, Minnesota has no law that requires unintended firearms to be stored in a particular way. Cool. Minnesota law prohibits any person from negligently storing or leading a loaded firearm in a location where a person knows or reasonably knows a child under 18 is likely to gain access to the firearm unless reasonable action is taken to secure the firearm. Minnesota statute 609666 sub 1. Let me see if I can find this real fast. I always like to find the original rather than just take some blog's word for it. That's why we do research over here in legal land. The state of Minnesota website's been having trouble loading for me today, and it apparently doesn't want to load for me right now either. Let's see, 609666 sub D1B and sub 2. Okay. A person is guilty of a gross misdemeanor who negligently stores or leaves a loaded firearm in a location where the person knows or reasonably knows a child is likely to gain access unless reasonable action is taken to secure the firearm against access by the child. So unless there was a trigger lock on something, well, we have a new gross misdemeanor charge. So that's a possibility. Nick should hire Bruce Rivers. Yeah, that'd be good. Bruce Rivers is the criminal lawyer. Who is it? Bruce Rivers is criminal. It'd be good for the content. LawTube representing LawTube, right? Hey, that's not the best idea. Yeah, how they gain access to the home in the first place. See, that's the thing that we don't know. We don't have the probable cause affidavit for the search warrant. That's what we don't know. So that's the missing component. What is the basis for the probable cause for the search warrant to get into the home? Once they're in the home, they're probably okay. Nick is going to prison? Unlikely. We covered it. We covered it, but you know, we can cover it again. Here's the relevant guidelines from Minnesota law for the drug offenses. He's currently charged with controlled substances, 2nd degree. I'm going to assume he has a criminal history score of 0. I understand that he might have been charged with a speeding infraction in the past. That may or may not count. It depends how long ago it was and other details. But I'm going to go with 0 for the moment. If he has a criminal history score of 0 for controlled substances 2nd degree, it's a presumptive sentence of 48 months, but it's a presumptive stayed sentence, which is to say that you don't actually go into prison. But the discretion of the court, up to 364 days of confinement and other non-jail sanctions can be imposed. And this does not appear to fall into any category of a mandatory minimum. He doesn't have a prior drug offense. It isn't related to gang activity or any other factor that would appear to trigger the relevant mandatory minimum. So I'm going under the presumption that he is facing a prospective sentence of 48 months, although that is a prospective sentence, and the judge can either lower it or increase it based on things. For example, if he's charged with other crimes that could potentially influence for a longer term. So that is what we're looking at. But even if you bumped up the term, even if you bumped it up, you still are looking at a likely resolution. Let's say, I think more probable than that. How about this? A more probable than not resolution of him not going to prison and potentially only having to do some sort of comparatively minimal jail time. But who knows? We'll see. What about the gun charge? The gun charge is a gross misdemeanor. It's a 1 year misdemeanor. So that doesn't do it. The gun charge is a misdemeanor. The child being present is a misdemeanor. They're 1 year offenses. So that doesn't really get you anywhere. They're throwaway charges at this point. The statement of probable cause is on Twitter. The statement of probable cause as to the search warrant, because that's what we need. The probable cause as to the search warrant. I doubtful it's on Twitter. I don't think it exists, or at least we don't have it. Maybe the Kiwi Forum people somehow managed to trudge it out, but I haven't seen it. He loses his Second Amendment rights. He would if he's convicted of any crime in which the potential penalty is more than a year. So that would be correct under federal law. although not necessarily under state law. I'd have to double check because some states don't do that. But under federal law, you're correct. If he's convicted of any crime for which the potential sentence is more than 12 months, even if he isn't sentenced to that, yes, then he would be a prohibited person under 922. Although strictly speaking, he's already a prohibited person because he's an unlawful user of a controlled substance, allegedly, which means that he's arguably in violation of 18 USC 922 G8, I think it is, on the federal level. Although, other than Hunter Biden, no one has been charged with that in recent memory. So, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but, you know. Is it G8? If I actually got the right subsection number off the top of my head, I'll be amazed. Let me check. Because if it's G8, I'm going to be really impressed by my own memory. Because I think G3 is felon. I think G8 is... Let's see. G... No, damn it. Eight is for like restraining orders. Shit. G2. Oh well, I was close. Oh well, I was close. G2. G1 would prohibit him for being convicted of a crime facing more than 1 year. G2, or no, G3. G3 is for controlled substances. With the fact of him trash talking the judge, he didn't trash talk the judge. He was incredibly respectful. What the hell are you talking about? He was insanely respectful. What the hell are you talking about, trash talking the judge? He didn't trash talk the judge. He was insanely respectful. What is your problem? If you cite in court, do you have to cite the right thing? Well, you do in writing. In writing, you got to cite the right thing. But like if you slipped up in an oral argument, you know, they might chide you, but they'd forgive you. The judge on this other case, the other judge on these other case, I don't know what you mean, and no. Oh, you mean with respect to the monograph thing? No, I don't think so. I don't think it will have anything to do with anything. He trashed the judge that will be in the proceeding over his next hearing. Well, if that's true, then he could ask for recusal if he feels like there's undue prejudice. So he might file a motion to recuse. The judge in a civil case, he trash talk is the same judge as criminal case. Yeah, that's not great. He might file a motion to recuse. We'll see. Based on the probable cause by the cop, it seems like the gun thing is a stretch. No, I mean, it's the very fact that guns were present, and that's enough. Under the relevant gun charge, that's enough. If he had used the gun in some way, then we'd be talking about a whole new category of pain. Right? If he had used the gun in some sense in the commission of the crime, brandishing it, threatening it, otherwise using it, yeah, then we'd be in first degree territory, and we'd be in a whole new world of pain. So yeah, the mere possession of it though, not so much. The gun charge will be dropped. It might be. It might be. It's a throwaway charge. It's a throwaway charge. Yeah. Yeah, if they're going to get a plea, especially to anything resembling the top count, they'll throw it away, I would imagine. As a felon, would he lose his law license? We discussed it. Probably not permanently, no. It's not a crime of moral turpitude. The crime doesn't involve, you know, fraud or lying or other crimes that reflect bad character. And it isn't an offense against a client. And so, no, the typical things for disbarment do not seem to apply. So, also, drug things in the bar, you know, they know each other. So, my suspicion is he's looking at some sort of suspended period of a license, and I would imagine that ultimately it's going to be by agreement. I imagine at the end of the day, he's going to he's going to sign an agreement relating to this. You can get the judge off your case by trash talking them and then filing motion to recuse. If you trash talk them before the case comes up, yes, because then arguably the judge is biased against you for things that happened outside of the courtroom. But if you trash talk the judge who's assigned to your case once they're assigned to you, no, then you just have to eat it, because, well, you know, now you're the one, you can't, it's basically this whole thing, like, you can't induce your own error. You can't, like, manufacture your own error. You can't just trash talk the judge and be like, oh, now you're biased against me. That doesn't work. So yes, if the reason the judge is biased towards you happened before the case occurred, then yes, they're biased towards you. If it happens like after the case happens, then no, not so much. But since the bias arguably occurred before the criminal case occurred, then yes, he has a basis to file a motion to recuse. Yes. He's at least months out to resolve. Yes, I think that's right. I think we are no fewer than 6 months before any kind of meaningful resolution, and I would expect that it's even longer than that. If it's closer to a year, I wouldn't be surprised. I've never heard of them recusing for one case and not another. Well, one's criminal and one's civil. First of all, it's a little odd that the same judge is hearing both, but okay, I guess that's the way Minnesota rolls. And second of all, I don't know. But he can ask. I don't know. Yeah, August is the first hearing. I think that's right. And I wouldn't be surprised if that date gets moved back. I wouldn't be surprised if that date moves. Michelle G for 999 says, I'm sorry y'all having to watch your friend go through this. I always like Nick. I'm praying he can get help. He's lucky to have friends that care for him. I pray he sees this soon. I hope so too. Marie Z gives 10 gift memberships. If you can't do that, how did witnesses in the Karen Reed trial open their own doors? They didn't. The judge is just making incorrect decisions in the Karen Reed case. What about his clients? What about him? First of all, I don't know that he has any clients right now. I don't know that he's practicing law. So I'm not sure if he has any clients. And second of all, what about him? Have I met Nick in person? Yeah, I've been to his house. I stayed with him in his house a couple of years ago. Isn't a confession to ask for recusal? No. Absolutely not. It's just saying, I think you might be biased against me. It's not a confession. If you refuse to open the door for child welfare check, then they need probable cause for search. Yes, they need probable cause to enter the house. They need probable cause to enter the house. He has absolutely every right to refuse entry. They need probable cause. Child welfare can't enter the house without probable cause either. They need probable cause to enter the house. Yeah. Not drinking as a condition of his release, it depends on which basis he was released. It depends whether he paid the unconditional or went for conditional. I'm assuming he posted bond. But I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming. What will happen with his 5 kids? I assume in the short term they're going to stay with his mother's family because they live nearby. In the long term, I don't think there's going to be any adverse consequence. I won't know for sure, but I would suspect that, you know, the Department of Child Services probably has bigger fish to fry if I were a betting man. So I would suspect that, you know, because there's no abuse allegations towards the kids, at least not so far, right? There's no neglect allegations like in the typical way you talk about neglect. Like it's not that they weren't being fed, and it's not that they weren't being clothed, and it's not like, you know, it's not like any of those things. It's not like they were being beaten, right? So there's no, there's nothing like that. The charge is that the kids happen to be in a place where drugs happen to be, which is not exactly what we typically think of as neglect. Apparently, it legally qualifies as neglect, but it's not typically what we think of when we think of that category. So I'm guessing that there's going to be no impact towards his kids, and there might be some sort of like, yeah, I'm not concerned on that in the long term. I assume child services has bigger fish to fry. Nick was, yeah, I like this comment from M22. I'm going back in the chat log trying to find comments to respond to. So this comment's from a while ago. But M22 said, late to the show. So glad you're discussing this, especially someone who knew Nick. I wouldn't have found any of you guys have not known for Nick. Hope he can change around. I mean, Nick was at least partially responsible for helping me get my channel a little bit off the ground. Um, you know, he had me on his channel when he obviously had way more subscribers than I did. You know, this is going back a while, so I'm not sure how many subscribers he had at the time. He probably had like upper 190s at the time. And I was like, you know, a little baby channel with like 10,000 people or something. And he was nice enough to have me on. And then he had me on for the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. And that, the Kyle Rittenhouse got me about 20,000 subs, I think. And then Johnny Depp got me about maybe 40,000 subs. That was on with Legal Bites though. But, you know, Nick was part of me growing and becoming a channel. So he was partly responsible for my success. A lot of my early channel memberships were carryover from Nick. So a lot of people who knew me, especially in the earlier days of my channel, were fans from Nick. And so that helped get the channel going. So that's nice. Nick introduced most of LawTube. Yeah, that's probably true in a lot of ways. You remember from watching from Lawful Masses? Wow. Then you're really OG. You're really OG. If you're here because you found me from Lawful Masses, you're hardcore OG. You're the real OGs. Yeah, the people who found me from Lawful Masses, you're the hardcore OGs. You're the real ones. Back when I was Internet Law Review. If you were here when this channel was still called Internet Law Review, you're one of the OGs. You're one of the hardcore fans. If you knew, or if you ever knew me as Blackleaf, because that was like a pseudonym I was using like in really early channel history, and also using on Leonard's channel. So if you ever knew me as Blackleaf, or you ever knew me as Internet Law Review, you're an OG. Your long time participation is appreciated. How many good fathers do you know who do coke around their kids? Well, as I said, if you were paying attention, I was talking about my observations of how he treated his kids when I was visiting his house several years ago. So, I have no evidence that he was using cocaine at that time, nor do I have any other evidence of drug use. And also, I literally saw him be good to his kids. I watched it happen with my own eyes. So, yeah. First impression wasn't good. You were having a bad day. I hear that a lot, Cricket. I hear that a lot. That you know, my first impression of me isn't good. Yeah, me and depression have had an interesting history, but I've gotten better. Although it's still not cured, but we've gotten better, and so that's been very beneficial. Then it's a worthless observation. I disagree. Why would that be worthless? Why would it be worthless for me to say, hey, a couple years ago when I was at Nick's house and I was staying for the weekend, I saw him be a good father. Why is that a worthless observation? That doesn't make any sense. It's possible that that's no longer true, but I don't know that because I didn't observe it. So I'm not sure what we're talking about right now. MK Ultra says, could each defendant claim ownership for one bag of drugs, therefore keeping under 25 for each? That's an interesting idea. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe if they split who owns which drugs. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that works. Hmm. They'll weigh the drugs of the crime mob, of course, and they'll test them for purity and everything else. Poisonous Paradox says, my best friend died of a drug overdose. It was a prescription drug addiction fed by her doctor after many surgeries. She was an exceptional mother. The lack of compassion is revolting. I feel that. Nick was vital on getting word out about the Rittenhouse trial. The thing about the Rittenhouse thing was so funny because the entire thing about how that trial was covered, like in sort of how LawTube came around, it was entirely organic. Like none of that was planned. It was just it's just a weird thing. I know because I was there, right? I know I was there because like day one of Rittenhouse, Nate the lawyer was on. I'm not sure, you know, what arrangements he made, but Nate the lawyer was on day one with Nick by himself. And then I was like, so I was typing in chat. I was like, hey, you know, I'd like to pop on too. It'll be fun. And he said, well, not today, but you can pop on tomorrow. I was like, okay. And so then the next day, I think it was just me on camera on day two. And then like other people were like, I'd like to come on too. And suddenly you had like 10 lawyers on at a time. And the whole thing was sort of an organic thing that just coalesced. It was an interesting time. It was an interesting thing. Some people are here to kick Nick when he's down. Yeah, I don't like that. Also, whichever asshole it was who literally called into court and in open court said that Nick should unalive himself. Dude, whoever you are out there, you have a problem, sir. You have a problem, sir. I can't even begin to contemplate what was going through your mind when you decided to effectively stand up in the middle of an open court proceeding, although it's over Zoom, but effectively decide to stand up in the middle of an open court proceeding and be like, yeah, the defendant should off himself. I mean, dude, that's your own judgment needs like review or something. That's fucked up, dude. I mean, if I don't know if the court is inclined to try to figure out who that is, but I'm half tempted. I'm half hopeful the court will spend the effort to figure out who it is because that's direct contempt. It happened directly in front of the judge. So if they can figure out who it is, the judge can sentence him to jail up to 6 months summarily. Did you know that? Because it's direct contempt, because it happened directly in front of the judge. The judge is literally a witness to the thing happening right in front of his eyes, because it happened in the courtroom. And so the judge can be like, okay, do you have anything to say? Okay, you're guilty. How about 6 months? And you're done. So don't do that. Don't do the direct contempt. Even if they're out of state, technically, I mean, the judge would have to get them, which they're not going to probably extradite someone for a 6-month thing, but technically, because, I mean, he made an appearance in the judge's courtroom, and the judge has jurisdiction over his own courtroom. He called in to the judge's courtroom in his jurisdiction. Yeah. So the judge has jurisdiction. Yeah. So technically, if he can find him, yeah. JPC says, I found all of you through law clips, if that's what it's called. Glad I did. I'm smart for it. You're welcome. Is legal mindset here? Thank you, by the way, for my moderators being here. I appreciate that just generally as well. For the 4,300 of you, let's take a moment to thank our moderators because they help to keep the environment a nice place. Alabama Rose and Tony, they're doing great. Oh, you're here. Legal mindset. Yeah, we were just discussing some of the legal implications. I don't know if you want to jump on stream. We're just kind of hanging around at this point. But if you want to, like, hang around or talk or anything, you're welcome to join. I don't know if you want to, but I can set that up through some complication. I'm just here to support. Fair enough. I'll take it. So, in case you missed our earlier legal analysis based on the relevant Minnesota guidelines, assuming that he has a criminal history score of 0, which I understand that he might technically have some sort of technical misdemeanor conviction for a traffic thing, but that may or may not count depending on time and other factors. So I'm going to assume 0 for the purposes of this discussion. But if he has a criminal history score of 0 and it's a controlled substance crime of the 2nd degree, then it's a presumptive stayed sentence of 48 months. At the discretion of the court, however, you could have confinement up to a year and other non-jail sanctions. No mandatory minimum. So we are not looking at prison. We are looking at jail. And with, a little bit of good luck, he might not even get jail. Although probably I would expect some jail, even if it's relatively de minimis. It might be nothing more than a couple days or like a month or something. But there might be some jail time. But it would be comparatively de minimis to the 25 years. So that's where we're sitting right now, as best as I can determine. So that was my legal analysis for the day. What's the difference between jail and prison? The facility is different. People use them interchangeably. I even use them interchangeably from time to time. But jail is typically where people are kept awaiting trial, and prison is where people are kept after they're convicted. But for relatively minor offenses, they keep people in jail, not prison. The jail is typically run by like the sheriff's office, whereas a prison is run by like the State Bureau of Prisons. Prisons are more secure. They're meant for more long-term confinement, more guards, more barbed wire, harsher environment, typically. Who bailed out April? It's not clear that she was bailed out. It looks like the charges have just been dismissed, which given what we know makes sense. The charge is possession. They went into the home. She doesn't live there. The drugs were found in the master bedroom. So there's not clear that she has possession. So the charges appear to be dismissed against her because, the state can't make its case. So they appear to be dismissed, which of course means April is likely to be a witness against Nick, which, depending on what she has to say, could potentially influence the government to potentially even bring more serious charges, depending on what she observed and knows and all the rest of it. Snazzy Trinkets says, if the pastor gained secondhand knowledge and went to Ellie with that, and Ellie used that for probable cause, secondhand knowledge, could that be disputed? Yes. Because the issue would be reliability of the informant. Right? So if it's him himself observing it, then that's one thing. It's like, okay, because we know who it is. It's a guy who wanted to remain anonymous, but we know his name, right? So if he chose to go to the police and be like, yeah, I saw this. All right, who are you? I'm their pastor. Oh, okay. Like, that's a person of reasonable credibility, right? It's not an anonymous report. It's a person of reasonably respectable standing. It's enough, right? But if it's like, I heard from a guy with no firsthand knowledge, then yeah, I would wonder about the validity of the warrant. Because if it's just based on secondhand knowledge, then my question is, well, what's the reliability of that guy? And also, what's the reliability of that guy relative to the police? Unless they then went talk to that guy and got it firsthand. So if they did that, that would be fine, right? So if they, it's like, okay, I heard it from a friend. Who? This guy. And then they talk to the guy, that would be better. And maybe that's part of the reason why there was a delay between the initial report and the search warrant. Maybe they were like trying to find and talk to the guy. Or like find other evidence to corroborate and verify the authenticity of the report, whatever that would be. So, yeah. If Nick invalidates the probable cause, then the warrant for the case is thrown out. Yeah, that would be the likely resolution, right? Because if they can't get into the house, then you're talking fruit of the poisonous tree. So unless you can make an argument through inevitable discovery, which is challenging at best under these circumstances, then yeah. So if the warrant is invalid, then the evidence would be suppressed for most of it, except for the part where Kayla apparently asked for the prescription bottle to be brought into her house and brought into the jail, and they found the pills and the gummy. So because they did it at her request, that arguably would, yeah. So there's that. So most of the charges would go away. Yeah. Once the case goes away, how will you hold Nick accountable? That is not my problem. I'm a legal analysis channel. I'm providing you legal analysis. What more do you want from me? New York Renal MD says the bail conditions are set up to fail. I see it all too often. If he wants help, you have my email. He needs support for alcohol medically. Fair. Yeah. No, the prescriptions, I don't know. The prescriptions, I don't know, because it's too attenuated. Although strictly speaking, because you're looking at but-for causation, like but-for causation, she wouldn't request the pills to be brought into the jail if she wasn't in the jail because she wouldn't be arrested because the search warrant was invalid. But it's too attenuated, right? Because you have an independent method, I don't think the pills that brought into the jail necessarily disappear. So I wouldn't bank on it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it. I like how I'm being challenged on this, like legally. Like there wasn't a reason for me saying it. Like, oh, it just hadn't occurred to me, right? It just hadn't occurred to me. Oh yeah, the pills would be gone too because also that. No, I probably said, they might be able to keep the pills because she asked for them to be brought into the jail. So they might have something there. I might have said that because I was thinking to myself, even if we could get the search warrant suppressed, I'm not sure it's enough to get after this. There might have been a basis for me saying that. I'm just saying, man. Do not harass the pastor. Well, you shouldn't harass anyone in a legal sense. But I won't be his friend anymore. Not that I was in the first place, but I'd shun him. But that's me. You do you. Maybe she had a prescription. If she does, then that would help a lot. Maybe. We'll see. He deserves criticism. I'm not beyond criticizing the man. He's done even, just, the legal charges are obviously one thing. You can obviously criticize the man, and I think there's sufficient evidence to say that he has some kind of problem, alcohol, drugs, or otherwise, and that he needs some sort of help. I think that's a fair comment, regardless of how the legal case turns out. So there's very real reasons to be critical of the man. I've expressed criticism during this chat, for example, where I was like, didn't really like the way he treated me on stream because he brought me in for one reason, and then we didn't do that. You know, what did the pastor do wrong? The pastor turned in my friend, and you're like, he had to, and I'm like, and therefore what? He had no choice. Okay. And that impacts me because why? I'm allowed to resent him. I'm allowed to resent him, and I do. So, that's that. If you feel differently about the pastor, if you feel like the pastor did the right thing, if you're happy the pastor did it, cool. Cool. I'm telling you my feelings. I do not share your feelings. If you can't respect that, I don't know what to tell you. Just Nova 1138 said 499. Since we're just past the dawn of the internet and now getting all sorts of info in real time, will filtering jurors become pointless in the future? Nah. Because no matter how well connected we are, because the amount of connectivity just increases the amount of information. The more connected people get, the more they're bombarded with more information. And so, like, their ability to pay attention to any particular piece of information becomes harder in some ways, not easier. So I don't think so. Because even as we gain access to all the information possible, we can only pay, our attention can only be in so many places at once. So I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a concern. Short of, some sort of mental brain implant that, like, directly deposits the knowledge inside of our mind. But short of that, no, I don't think I think we're okay. I just said he wasn't my friend. I didn't say he wasn't my friend. If I said that, it was by pure misspeak. Nick has been my friend for a long time. I didn't say he wasn't my friend. So either you misheard me or I misspoke. One of the two. It's possible I slurred or otherwise misspoke. I'm not perfect. When feelings matter more than facts, law fails. Again, guys, I'm trying to do this on a couple different levels. Please pay attention. I've done a legal analysis during this entire channel in which my legal analysis has not been informed by my feelings. At no point in my legal analysis did I say to my feelings. My legal analysis was my legal analysis. Hey, here's the crime he's charged with. Okay? Here are the sentencing guidelines for that crime. Right? Here's some potential mitigating factors. Like maybe we can get the amount dumped down. I mean, the police by their own say the container weight was included. So maybe we can bring it down. If we can bring it down, maybe we can drop a category. That might be nice, right? And then here's some aggravating factors. Okay, now we have additional pills. That might have to be brought under a separate charge. So we might have additional charges for other drug possessions that haven't yet been brought. And like, here's what we can kind of expect legally. And like, there's been a whole legal analysis. At no point in this legal analysis have I brought my emotions into it. And then I didn't even say with respect to the mandatory reporter, I was like, oh, if the pastor observed it himself, then we're probably cool. My feelings towards the pastor relative to my friend did not influence my legal analysis. Did it? It did not. I was very clear on this point. If he observed it himself, we're probably done. If he didn't observe it himself and it was relying on a friend, what's the basis of reliability of the friend? Did the police talk to the friend? If so, we're probably done. And then I said, on a personal level, I resent the guy because I choose to. I did not bring my feelings into the legal analysis. My legal analysis is sound. Get off my lawn. Seize the day and then I pointed out that, yeah, maybe Nick has a basis to recuse because, there's a potential argument that he has a potential argument. He could recuse. Maybe there's an argument there, so it's like, okay, all right. The police can't report. Yes, he can. The priest not only can report, he's required to report. The priest is a mandatory reporter under Minnesota law. Double check. Seize the Day gave CA 279, says prayers for Nick, block the haters, embrace the good. You're welcome. There's case law about a guy. Yeah, you think, yeah, there is. The issue is the reliability of the informant. That's the issue. Is the informant reliable? Right? So if you have a purely anonymous informant without more, that's not reliable. The case law is pretty clear on that. Unless the purely anonymous informant can give you something that then like augments his report. So if the purely anonymous informant can like say, hey, this guy's dealing drugs, and you're like, what? And you're like, be at the corner at 7, and you watch him do it. And you go to the corner at 7 and he does it. Then boom, you're there, right? Because now you have indicia, or like, here's where the drugs are stored. It has his fingerprints on it or whatever, right? So the question is the reliability of the informant. So if the pastor sees it himself, yeah, that's a reliable informant. I saw it myself. I'm a reliable person. You can take my word for it. That works. If he heard it from a guy, who's the guy? Did the police talk to the guy themselves? How do we have reliability of this guy? And so forth and so on. So yes, we are doing the proper legal analysis. Nick is a freedom fighter targeted to some degree. That might be true. I don't know how much it influences legal analysis, but fair enough. Could April have been the informant? Seems unlikely, because if she was, presumably she wouldn't be there at the time. And also, why? That seems unlikely. Yeah. Rackets would want a fair, logical, and objective analysis of his case. Yeah. Nick is in trouble. Nick is in trouble, right? Our best hopes are twofold. Our best hopes are twofold. One, we somehow attack the warrant, which, you know, we've discussed some possibilities along those lines. Two, we somehow get the drug amount lowered down, right? So, but then, of course, we have concerns, additional pills, concerns, potential attempt to bring contraband into a jail. And it's like, and yeah, so Nick is in trouble. He's facing a felony conviction. It looks like he won't have any prison time. It seems possible, assuming that he has no criminal history, which it seems likely, and no other indicia that would seem to suggest that, you know, jail time is particularly warranted in this particular case, I would assume that he's not likely to receive a particularly long jail sentence. It might even be like a thing like show up on weekends every weekend for like a year or something. It could be something like that. There's a lot of possibilities, right? So, or it would be fairly minimal jail time, 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, right? So it's like, yes, but Nick has a problem. He's also facing a felony conviction, which isn't great. He's also facing a suspension from the bar, I would assume, presumably by agreement at some point for some period of time. So Nick has problems. Nick has many legal problems. With the drugs were cut for fentanyl, would that aggravate the charges? No, I don't think so, because the relevant charge is cocaine or, well, no, that's a fair point, because, hold on. Okay, can I find this in a hurry? Oh, Lord. Because fentanyl... This is where we do searches online, and I show you why it's a bad idea to search this online. Because that would be a different charge potentially. So if it's cut with fentanyl, that could be a problem. So yeah, I'm not. Yeah. Let's see. 25 controlled substances. Okay. Will the reporter's office let me open up their link today? Probably not. Their website seems to have been down all day today. Yeah, I'm gonna press on so I don't have to do a search. I didn't address your super chat. It's not personal. I'm just trying to keep up, but let me see if I can find it because I'm trying to address them as we go. New York Renal MD gave $5. Say law enforcement doesn't help people with addiction. In my experience, it only hurts the situation. It eats up resources better spent on medicinal help. I think that's fair. Can Nick's streams be used against him in this case? Possibly. Unclear. If he doesn't take the stand in his own defense, assuming we get to trial, which I'm thinking this will be resolved, I'm assuming this is going to be resolved without a trial. But could Nick's streams be used against him? Well, it's propensity evidence because it's not him doing drugs on stream, right? So arguably it's propensity evidence under Rule 403. Why is it being brought in other than to show character? Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm going to go with no unless he takes the stand. Nick had blow on his nose on his most recent stream. He had something on his nose, which you have no idea what it is. And I you know. J. Bob says, have there been cases of courts successfully going after people on Zoom bombing court proceedings? Not to the best of my knowledge, but it doesn't mean there can't be a first. 10K View, I found your super chat, says, how are you doing following the news? I see you're somewhat affected, but keeping it professional and remaining a good friend. I talked about my feelings related to this case. I talked about my feelings. I don't know how I feel. I don't feel angry. I'm not even sure I feel sad. I'm not even sure exactly what it is I'm feeling. I need new vocab words for emotions. I feel concerned is the best word I've got. I feel concerned. I feel like my friend might be in trouble. Legally, personally, substance abuse-wise. Concern is the emotion that most comes to mind. I feel concern. That's what I'm going with. I also feel, perhaps unfairly, slightly personally offended because I asked him about it a couple months ago and he denied everything. And I've tried to reach out to him to offer my friendship. And I don't know the degree to which Nick considers me a friend or a close friend. I don't know. I'm obviously not part of whatever party crowd he apparently is part of, which might be the friends that he's associating with more these days. So I feel, I don't know, slightly offended that he presumably lied to me, and I'm not thrilled about that. So it makes me cry a little bit. Roz Pedal for $5 said, godly intervention, in my opinion. It was on a path to death. Now I can advocate for real addiction intervention. Fair enough. Second request for the return of a cooking stream. Love that stream. We might do that. We tuned TOS. First of all, KJab became an uncivilian. Thank you for hitting the join button. And so did Robin Howard hits the join button. Thank you both for becoming members of the channel. It is appreciated. We tuned TOC for $10. Says April and her husband were running the Steel Toe Show podcast. Became close friends with the Rekietas. If half of what he revealed after he heard about the arrest is true, oh my God. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Nick has for quite some time denied both publicly and to me personally, and something else I asked him about, that he denied. He has denied being involved in any sort of swinging or open marriage or other sort of relationship thing. So, you know, I'm I'm concerned that it's possible that he might have lied to me. And yeah, I mean, not strictly speaking, that it's my business, so maybe that's unfair too. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just unfair. I don't know how to feel. I'm confused. The Pounder says LawTube is a joke. I like how none of you are talking about the kids and the fact he had so much drug around them. They could have gone to and died. Aaron said Nick wasn't even whatever. I missed the last word. As I expressed before, I'm not sure what it says about my character, disposition, or anything else. And I understand you being more concerned about the kids, which is probably the correct feeling. That's probably the more correct feeling, is to be more concerned about the kids. You have a more objective standpoint than me. You don't know Nick personally. You've presumably never spent time at his house. Like, you've never spent time with the man. You've never, like, been on stream with the man. You've never talked to the man or had a found a conversation with the man. I have. So my perspective is different than your perspective. It may be the wrong perspective. It may be a perspective too close. But for whatever it says about me and my character, like, my feelings immediately go towards Nick, primarily. That isn't to say that, like, the kids aren't, like, are irrelevant. It's just not where my mind immediately goes. And that's just me being honest. So if you want to judge me because my feelings are wrong, then I guess okay. Perhaps my feelings are wrong. Perhaps they're the wrong feelings to have. They're just what I'm feeling, and I'm just being honest to you about my feelings, because that's what I'm doing right now. So if you feel differently, I understand. Your feelings might be the correct feelings. My feelings go to the person that I've, at least in my own mind, perhaps less in reality, but at least in my own mind, have built a friendship with and have some sort of a spirit de corps because we've gone through similar experiences in what could be described as this YouTube LawTube game. So that's how I feel, for better or worse. I don't know what to tell you. Seize the Day says, drugs lie. Hate the drug, not the user. Embrace this. That's fair enough. But regardless of how I feel, I will be damned if I don't give you the best, most correct, most objective legal analysis of anyone, anywhere. My legal analysis is second to none. Come after me, bro. Come after me. Rene Verial for 1990 says, before I was not, my gatherer was not cooked on cocaine, but after my parents split, he got clean and made a change to be an amazing father. Nick can come clean, but the choice needs to be made from him. Hopefully he makes it. Big Rig 0485 says, hopefully it was just the addiction lying to you, not Nick himself. These things happen with addiction. He needs help. K10 View said, for $6.99 Canadian, first they lie to themselves, then they lie to others, including close friends and family. That's fair. Alex Clark said for $5, said perhaps he didn't want to disappoint you and felt ashamed. Fair that too. Pat Ronning for $4.99 says, I'm concerned about the triggers of them going home. It will be tough. Florida Dad said for $20, I'm sorry your friend is in trouble and didn't do the smart thing to reach out to you as an attorney and or friend. Addiction has a lot of shame and he's probably had a hard time showing that shame to you. That's fair. 1 second, please. I have someone at my door. New hard drive. Yay. New hard drive. I recently bought a Seagate hard drive, but apparently was the wrong kind of drive because it was way too slow, and it was really annoying the shit out of me. So I've scheduled a return for the hard drive, and I just got from my friends at Amazon my new hard drive, 8 terabyte Rekieta from Seagate. So I now have another 8 terabytes, and I'm excited and happy. I need the space. I need the space. I have an M.2 drive for my C drive. I have a 1 terabyte M.2. So I have like my boot drive is super duper speedy. But for storage, they don't make SSDs that big. And if they do, they're way too expensive. This was like $170, guys. It's $170 for 8 terabytes for a 7200 RPM platter. It's fine. In addition to the 5 terabyte drive I already have, now I have another 8 terabytes. The M.2 drive for boot, though, is awesome, though. It's great. Are you sure it's 8 gigabytes? It looks small. Do you realize that the hard drive is the same size no matter how many terabytes it is? It's the same physical size no matter how much storage space it is? Do you not know that? Okay. They do make 8 terabyte SSDs. I'm sure they do. I'm also sure it's more than $170. I'm just guessing. Your 6 terabyte SSD was only like $250. Guys, it's going to be fine. I don't need that. First of all, this is supposed to have a transfer speed of like up to 250 megabytes a second or something, or megabits a second rather. So it's supposed to be plenty fast, which is one of the reasons I got it. So I got my box. I'll do a little unboxing here. Unboxing time is glorious time for you and me, baby. Unboxing time is glorious time for you and me, baby. For you and me, baby. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh. First of all, it's nicely packaged, so that's very nice. Turn off the computer before you put it in. That's probably a good tip. It's probably a good tip. Oh, yeah. I won't take it out of the packaging right now, but I think you can see it through the foil. Yeah. Rekieta 8 terabyte from Seagate. So I'll take it out of its packaging later, but exciting. So now I have more space for more storage and more things. That's nice. You can always hot swap. No. Well, I guess now is as good as time to sign off as any because I need to reboot my computer. Now's a good time to sign off as any because I need to reboot my computer. So it's been fun. All right, guys. Well, I still don't know what I'm going to do in the future concerning these streams regarding Nick or not. I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't made a decision on that, but I want to do some legal analysis today and talk a little bit about some of the legal stuff that's going on. And I hope you got some value out of that. And we talked about some of the potential. We talked about some of the possibilities for Nick. We talked about, being able to maybe hack the warrant. If we could do that, that'd be great. If we can somehow attack the warrant, that'd be great. We talked about the possibility of potentially getting a reduction of the drugs because, once we factor out packaging weight and stuff. So there's that possibility. We also talked about some potential problems in potential new drug charges for obviously lesser degrees of drug charges, but for like the ketamine pills and stuff like that, although they might be prescription, might not. We don't know, so we'll see. And we also talked about the possibility of, for example, potentially like a smuggling charge relating to potentially bringing illicit contraband into a jail. So we talked about that. We talked about the potential sentencing and what is likely or what possible. We talked about his bar license and possible things there. So I think we've hit this up from quite a few angles on our legal analysis today. And then I talked about my feelings. And then I got mushy and things got a little weird there for a while. But, you know, that's okay. $20 from Avarice. $20 says, I saw you on Nick's channel during his channel delete. Yeah, era. I'm not sensitive to edgy jokes, but I thought you all came off needlessly racist. Prejudice. And seeing him talk like that, and then you all on TLA's and Natalie's channel. What the hell are you talking about? Racist? What the hell are you talking about? You know, if you make an unleveled charge at racism on somebody, you can just go fuck off. Thank you for your $20. CRE Rose gave $2 Canadian today, sending hugs. You're the real one, Kurt. Much respect. And 499 said, Mike DiRado, this is why I watch you. I disagree with you all the time, but I learn a lot from you. Well, I just want you to follow my legal analysis. I just want you to understand the law. That's what I'm principally here to do, is to help you understand the law. And as long as I'm giving a good legal analysis, I'm doing my job. I think that's what LawTube is about. You have a good heart. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I don't know what the hell thing is. Yeah, I don't know. Don't read the comment. I mean, he gave me $20 to read his comment, so thanks for the $20, asshole. I'll be using that. Thank you. Yeah, you said racist. Yeah, what is this bullshit? What is this bullshit with racist? Anyway, so I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks for the $20. I'll use it, you know, to get a beer or something and, you know, drinks your salty tears or some bullshit. I'm going to sign off for now. I've been Uncivil Law. I hope all's well. Cheers, my friends, for now, and goodbye. One last comment for the win right at the last minute. You got to love that one, man. You guys will never let me go. If you guys keep giving me super chats, I'll just keep talking. I can keep talking as long as you guys keep giving me money. But came in just before the wire. John McGreeve, been a member for 19 months, and Brittany Zarwal for $10. Say, Kurt, addicts lie to people they respect, whose opinions they value and don't want to disappoint. Kurt lying to you doesn't mean he doesn't see you as a friend. And I say that as a recovering opioid addict. Fair enough. And goodbye.